All right, in this video, we're going to talk about Cedar Mill, Oregon. Seeds Millie, that's what I call it, but nobody else does. If you are thinking about moving to Portland and if you're wanting to learn about a really, really great area on Portland's west side, stay tuned to learn more. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Paul Clem with the Home Team Brokers coming to you from Portland, Oregon. And in this video, we're talking about Cedar Mill, a very dynamic, very diverse area in terms of what you can get and where it's located geographically. So Cedar Mill is on the west side of Portland, north of Beaverton, west of Portland, up over the West Hills. So it borders right up against Portland city limits, and the county line kind of staggers throughout the West Hills, where you have Multnomah County to the east, where Portland is, and then you have Washington County. Cedar Mill is primarily unincorporated Washington County. We'll talk about what the implications of that are later in this video, but we're going to talk about the pros and cons of living in Cedar Mill, what Cedar Mill has to offer, what the real estate market is like, and just give you a little background and show you what it's going to be like living in Cedar Mill, a very popular area, an area that is highly sought after, a little bit higher end in terms of pricing, but there's a pretty big range here and you might be surprised what you can get. So because it's 38 degrees today and raining, we're going to take a look at a map today, look at Cedar Mill on the map. So let's switch it over. All right, everyone, let's talk about Cedar Mill. So Cedar Mill is an interesting area because it lies right between Portland and Beaverton. It's north of Beaverton, west of Portland, and you see this line right here. That's basically the county line where you have Multnomah County and Washington County over here. You're in Beaverton School District, so by and large, this is considered to be a part of Beaverton, and in terms of a community, you're up in the West Hills. We can show you the topography here. This is quite a bit of elevation. In here, you see these windy roads. This is Forest Park, and then you come down the back side of the hill, the west side of the hill, into the Tualatin Valley, which is Beaverton, and then as far out as Hillsboro. So Cedar Mill is really a West Hills area in Portland and the west side, and it has a few different neighborhoods and a few different areas that offer a different living experience. It's pretty consistent throughout. It's primarily newer and more newly developed, but there are a lot of neighborhoods that are more mid-century. You have really, really old homes that once had a lot of property in this area, but a lot of developments, a lot of planned communities, a lot of HOA communities, things like that. So let's talk first about the neighborhoods in Cedar Mill. So one thing I'll point out right away, and I'll point out this Realtor.com data later. We'll talk more about real estate and the housing market there. When you punch in Cedar Mill in Realtor.com, which is typically what I use for a quick answer on median sale price and median list price, the RMLS data here locally, the MLS data obviously is going to be the true authority on that, but for purposes like this, Realtor.com is usually a reference point that I use. So at any rate, when you put in Cedar Mill, you see the area that is highlighted here. Now, if you look on Google, you see Google is including West Haven. It says West Haven Sylvan. People would say West Haven down here on this kind of eastern, southeastern section of Cedar Mill. Now, I recently sold a house in West Haven up off of Cornell, right up in here. So I know that for sure people would refer to this area as West Haven. If people lived up here in West Haven, they would very likely say they live in Cedar Mill. So, how that data is segmented or why they have this separate, I'm not exactly sure, honestly, but we're going to talk about Cedar Mill in the context of including this West Haven area as well, because a lot of consistency through here in terms of what you can get. Again, this is by and large the same area and community. Some of this is going to feed into Beaverton High School down here, but most of this area is going to feed into Sunset High School, which is going to be right here, just north of Highway 26. So West Haven, Sylvan, this is obviously closer to Portland, right off Highway 26. You can get, drop right down into Portland. Cornell will also take you down into Portland. Well, Barnes will hit Burnside, right? So you can take Burnside into downtown Portland, and then Cornell as well will take you into Northwest Portland, Northwest 23rd, Pearl District, that area. So you have actually a few different routes and kind of some back roads going into Portland from anywhere you would be in Cedar Mill, which is nice. You don't have to take Highway 26, which can get a little backed up at times. Kind of windy. You're coming down the hill here. A lot of people hitting the brakes. Every time you come around a corner, it can be treacherous. I've seen a lot of fender benders, a lot of people getting rear-ended through there. So this West Haven, Sylvan, West Haven area, again, is going to be really considered to be part of Cedar Mill. It's primarily in Washington County as well and Beaverton School District. So that's part of why, it's going to be considered more part of this community than some of like Southwest Hills, for example, or even up here in Northwest Heights. Now, Northwest Heights, Forest Heights, is the big development in here. Really does bleed into Cedar Mill and this north area and Bonnie Slope. You have the central Cedar Mill area. The north area is called Bonnie Slope, and then Coleman. Again, you get a ton of consistency through here. Some developments that are a little bit older, 80s, 90s, but you get a lot of newer developments in the last 20 or 25 years. You have some of these main thoroughfares here, Saltzman, Miller, which kind of bleeds over into Northwest Heights, but still kind of a main thoroughfare here. McDaniel, again, Cornell, like we talked about, and Barnes. So that's kind of the general layout and in terms of what you're getting in Cedar Mill, a few different neighborhoods within Cedar Mill itself. And you have this central area, which is newer development, and this is more dense, kind of a mixed-use area where you have townhomes and condos and things like that. And this is really cool to have if you're living in Cedar Mill. So you have obviously the proximity to Portland, but in here you have this little shopping center where you actually have two of the best breweries in the Portland area. Great Notion being arguably, a lot of people consider that to be the best craft brewery in Portland. And then you have Von Ebert Brewing. So they have these brew pubs here, which are really great. You have the Market of Choice, a few other shops, restaurants, things like that in here. And again, that's really centrally located. This is all newer in here. And then kind of the original corridor commercial district through Cedar Mill is along Cornell. So you get right into kind of the central Cedar Mill area. And along Cornell here, you have your grocery stores, gas stations, fast food, Sunset High School. So this Cornell corridor here, again, is where you would probably be going for a lot of your shopping and day-to-day items. All right, a little more about Cedar Mill. So there is a lot of higher end luxury real estate throughout Cedar Mill. Now there's a lot of homes, a lot of properties that are a little bit more middle of the road, but you're going to be paying more on average for what you get. Now that's not necessarily price per square foot. You can get some relative affordability, in terms of what you're getting. So 4 bedrooms, 2,500 to 3,000 square feet in Cedar Mill, it's probably going to be about 800,000, maybe 750 to 950, something like that. But you do get quite a bit of 1 million, 1.2, 1.5 plus in a lot of these developments as well. Now, part of that is because Northwest Heights, by and large, is considered to be a higher end luxury community. And a lot of what you get here in Northwest Heights and Forest Heights in particular, again, that is the name of the development, really bleeds into these areas. So a ton of consistency in terms of, the type and style of living, obviously the topography, the beauty, the natural landscape, which is a big part of what draws people to this area. Again, it's going to be more consistent than not from what you get up in Northwest Heights, little bit in Sylvan Highlands, Southwest Hills, but these are older communities, West Hills communities in here, where again you have a ton of newer development in this area. So a pretty big contrast there outside of, again, just the landscape overall. There's about 18,000 people that live in Cedar Mill. It's pretty dense, so you can't get too many homes that are on larger properties. You can maybe get a little bit of that in some of the older communities in West Haven, where you can maybe get like a quarter acre. But obviously, the newer the homes, the smaller the lots. That's generally a rule of thumb. So a lot of this newer construction and newer development, again, even in the last 15 or 25 years, you're going to get smaller lots up in this area. So that is a little bit of a trade-off in here. And that does contribute to this area being pretty dense overall. Now, we talked about proximity to Portland and things that you can get locally. So again, you have this Cedar Mill shopping center, this area in here. And then you have Cornell. You're just north of Cedar Hills. So Cedar Hills is a wonderful little community. I mean, it's really, again, it kind of blends in or bleeds into Cedar Mill, Cedar Hills, but definitely a different feel in Cedar Hills. It's by and large older, a lot of mid-century post-war development, in particular in here around like Commonwealth Lake Park, for example. But, the highlight of Cedar Hills is Cedar Hills Crossing. So you see all this commercial development in here. There's some industrial areas in here. The Nike employee store, Nike company store, you see that there is in there. But Cedar Hills Crossing in here, so much has gone in the last few years in terms of shopping, but also restaurants. A lot of things to do. Great entertainment area. You have Kingpins, which is like a family fun center. There's some good restaurants in there again. And if you get south of Cedar Hills, you get into central Beaverton, into downtown Beaverton, which is a little more of an old town feel, but a lot of great restaurants, bars, breweries, shopping going into this area as well. So there's a lot to offer in Beaverton, really at your doorstep, living in Cedar Mill, to get into Cedar Hills and into Beaverton. You're probably going to be getting into Portland. A lot of people like Cedar Mill because you can get into Portland so easily. Most people in the suburbs do like to get out to Portland from time to time, believe it or not. So, if you don't want any part of Portland, you're probably going to be out in Hillsboro, maybe down in Wilsonville, Happy Valley, Oregon City, Canby. But if you're living on the west side, close in, near or inside of this 217 corridor, I mean, part of your criteria in terms of what you're looking for is proximity to be able to get into Portland. And obviously, Pearl District, Northwest District, downtown, you got the Moda Center, Blazer Games, Convention Center, these east side neighborhoods with a ton of bars and restaurants and really, true kind of Portland feel. All going to be much, much more accessible living in Cedar Mill than it would be if you were living further out in Beaverton and Hillsboro or some of the areas that I mentioned, and in particular Bethany. I mean, Bethany, you can kind of take the same path into Portland. Bethany is an area that's going to be compared to Cedar Mill just because of where it is geographically. And I did a video on Bethany if you want to check that out. I mean, it's a very desirable area. It's probably newer, has a higher volume of planned developments, kind of master plan communities, HOA communities. Again, some a little bit older, but a lot of, newer construction, newer development, in particular up in North Bethany, where you start hitting the urban growth boundary. As that expands, that's where people are building, right? So, everything further and further away gets newer and newer by and large. Bethany's probably a little more cookie cutter. It's a little more of a rolling hills feel than what you get in Cedar Mill, which is really kind of on these foothills of the West Hills, the Tualatin Mountains. So if you like Cedar Mill, Bethany would be an option probably, or vice versa. Again, these areas are compared to each other quite a bit. Different schools, different high school, that it goes into. So there's some differences there. Again, but proximity to, if you're in Bethany, you're not getting into Cedar Hills, downtown Beaverton as easily. You're certainly not getting into Portland as easily. So there's a little bit of a bubble around it. I feel like if you're living in Bethany, you're not leaving Bethany as much probably, or just getting out to other places wouldn't be as important. But going back to Cedar Mill, you can see you're right on Highway 26. Highway 26 will take you out to the coast. If you're going out to the northern coast, or if you want to get out to Tillamook and down to the central coast. So getting out to the Oregon coast, very easy. I mean, you're on the west side, so getting out to Mount Hood might tack on 20-25 minutes, but still relatively easy with Highway 26 right there. You can get on Highway 26, get on 84, and get out to the mountain. All right, let's take a look at the real estate market here. This is an area that, has always been and remains to be highly desirable for a lot of people. When you look at the mix of proximity, the natural beauty, the higher end homes, kind of the volume of, what a lot of people would consider to be nicer areas, in particular if you're looking for relatively new construction in, more kind of master planned communities. A lot of people like those layouts with, the little parks that they offer and sidewalks and cul-de-sacs and things like that. You get a ton of that in Cedar Mill. So like I mentioned, Realtor.com is typically a pretty good reference point to get a pulse on the market in a particular area. So for Cedar Mill, again, in this case, not including this West Haven section of Cedar Mill, median list price about $845, median sale price $675. If we look at the actual statistics from the RMLS, the MLS area is Northwest Washington County. So this is going to include some areas that are not only Cedar Mill, but it's also going to include Bethany. It's definitely going to include that West Haven area as well, but pretty consistent in terms of the numbers. So average sale price, $670, median sale price $705 year to date. So that's pretty consistent there. $700,000 is going to get you something that either needs some work or is on the smaller side, probably. So those median sale numbers typically get skewed a little bit towards something that is kind of right middle of the road or a little bit less than probably what you would expect in a given area. For Cedar Mill, again, $750 to $950 is probably what you're looking at for a property that is 4 bedrooms, more or less 2,500 to 3,000 square feet, which is, I think, what a lot of people are looking for when they're moving into this area. And there's a high volume of that as well. Now, there's a lot of 5-bedroom, 3,500 to 4,500 square feet homes as well. And properties like that, homes like that, are going to be at least $1 million, up to 1.5, might push 1.8, something like that. And then again, you can get some townhomes, not a lot of apartment style condos necessarily, but in here off of I think 118th, there's a lot of townhomes in here. These are all townhomes, and it's, right next to the shopping center. So there is some opportunity to get into a condo. Obviously, a condo is going to be less than that median sale price, probably going to be closer to high 3s to mid 5s, maybe 375 to 550, depending on what and exactly where. A lot of demand here. Again, like a lot of the market, if we're looking at end of 2023, not incredibly competitive necessarily. So I think that the trends here, or the trends kind of regionally in the Portland metro area, it's going to follow suit in Cedar Mill as far as what you're seeing. But values have really sustained themselves. You see maybe a little bit of a reduction in recent months and kind of throughout this year because of interest rates. But this is an area that when things snap back, as rates come down, I would suspect a little more activity in terms of competition in an area like Cedar Mill than others. So if Cedar Mill is an area that looks interesting to you, if this is an area you want to learn more about, if you want to talk more about areas that are similar, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, click the link down below in the description of the video, schedule a Zoom call with us, and we can talk about your budget, your timeline, what areas are going to suit your needs, and put together a game plan for you. Now, if this video is helpful, make sure to hit the like button. That helps us out a lot. And if you want to get more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. As always, we really appreciate you watching, and until next time, we'll talk to you later.